Okay, good day, ladies and gentlemen, and you are welcome. We are live now. In case you're meeting me for the very first time, my name is Sheyi Agbede. I am a leadership growth expert and a learning and development specialist. I help individuals, I help organizations to discover clarity and become the very best versions of themselves through coaching and training interventions. And I'm very, very excited to be on this webinar once again with you. And the whole webinar is designed to help you to accelerate growth in your life, in your career, and in your business. That's what the whole webinar is all about. Now, as usual, I'm not doing this alone today. I have an amazing personality that will be sharing from her wealth of experience with us today. She's ready to run. So she's been with us and she's ready to run. So I'm going to let her loose very, very shortly. So whatever part of the world it is that you are, please let us know. We are presently streaming on multiple platforms. We are right now on YouTube, we're on Facebook, and we are on LinkedIn as well. So whatever platform it is that you're joining us from, we would like to know. Just drop in the comment box, let us know where it is that you're joining us from. So we'd like to know where it is that you're joining us from, and in the course of the conversation we will be able to take some of your questions. All right, so our guest is going to be able to take some of your questions. I'll try as much as possible to get to some of your questions on all those platforms. So just drop your messages there, drop your questions there, drop your aha moments. Don't be a fly on the wall, don't just pet and be watching and listening. Drop your aha moments and all of that. Drop all of those in the comments and we'll be glad to share them in the course of our conversation. So ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, I'm going to be inviting our guest to join us very, very shortly. But before I do that, I'm going to be playing her video profile so you have an idea of exactly who is speaking to us today. So I will see you right after the video profile, and the next voice you'll be hearing after that will be one of our guests for today. So ladies and gentlemen, I'll see you very, very shortly. Bye-bye for now.
We are honored to host Avery Thacther. Avery Tacher is a seasoned registered nurse who transitioned from the reactive side of medicine in the ICU to a proactive health advocate. Recognizing the pervasive impact of chronic stress on individuals, Avery redirected her career in 2015 towards preventative care. As a dedicated professional, she is committed to assisting individuals in preventing and reversing the adverse health effects of stress. Avery employs a comprehensive approach that integrates mindset strategies, embodiment and somatic practices, meditation, philosophy, and yoga. Specializing in supporting highly sensitive individuals grappling with recent setbacks that have left them questioning their identity and purpose, Avery offers personalized one-on-one sessions. Additionally, she facilitates transformative experiences through the Mindset Reboot program, a group coaching initiative designed to empower individuals on their journey to holistic well-being. Avery Tacher stands at the forefront of fostering resilience, guiding others towards a healthier and more purposeful life. Sharing her wealth of experience on the topic, how to stop burnout and unlock your productivity potential. Ladies and gentlemen, with a rousing ovation, make welcome Avery Tacher.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, I present to you Avery Tacher, and she is here with us. Hi, Avery. It's nice to have you join us today.
Hi, Sheyi. I'm so excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yes. I'm really excited that you are here with us as well. Now, I know we've just gone through your video profile, right? And people kind of have an idea of who it is that you are, but we always like to hear from what we call the hustleman. So please talk to us. Who exactly is Avery Tacher?
So I am a super nerd that loves everything about how stress affects our body. And I started down this journey when I was working as a registered nurse in ICUs, and I saw so many adults sick from illnesses and diseases that had strong links to chronic stress. And I knew I wanted to get out of that reactive side of medicine, and I really wanted to help prevent people from ending up in some of the worst days of their lives in an ICU. And this is where my super nerd really took over, and I dove into all of the research and figured out what works, what doesn't, what's just hype. And I felt like I had it figured out and I was doing everything right. But then at the end of 2018, I experienced my own epic burnout that's left me with chronic health issues and a permanent disability. And I was so frustrated because, again, I thought I was doing everything right. Why did I burn out? And so the super nerd dove back into the research, found the missing pieces of the puzzle, and I'm sure that's what we're going to chat about today.
Wow, that's amazing. And I mean, like, you described yourself as a super nerd there, which is very interesting. But the important part for me there was that you came into what it is that you're doing now as a result of certain experiences that you had yourself. Which is something very important. Sometimes we don't necessarily start off our lives thinking this is the way we're going to go. The circumstances along the way kind of charts the course of our lives, and that's exactly what it is that you're talking about. So we're talking about burnout today, and particularly our topic today is how to stop burnout and unlock your productivity. But for the benefit of those that may be wondering, I know you kind of mentioned burnout in your opening statement there. So what exactly is burnout? How would you define burnout?
That's a great question. So burnout really is the end stage of chronic stress where our body is no longer able to cope with the expectation of this extra energy demand. So that's one big definition. So let's break it down. So when we are in this chronic stressed out state, our body needs extra energy in order to fight or flight, which is what our stress response was designed for. Freeze or fawn are other two common responses, and those are more trauma-based responses, and so we can chat about those as well. But really in this activated stress state, our body needs a lot of energy to keep up with all that we're doing. So we move through these different stages of chronic stress until finally our body can't produce or have us eat enough to create the energy that we need for this increased demand. And so that's when burnout is kind of like our safety net. It catches us and forces us to rest in some way or another, so that way we can recharge enough energy to keep going. So burnout really is that end stage of when our body says, okay, we need to slow down.
Oh wow, that's very interesting. Now you can explain to us exactly what burnout is and all of that. How we talked about how our body goes through either the fight or flight mode and all of that. That's very, very interesting. Now, in your own experience, right, how prevalent is this burnout? Because someone might be wondering, well, okay, is this something that I should be listening to at this time? Why is this important to me right now? So in your own experience, right, how prevalent is this burnout? Are there any particular industries that you feel, okay, in this industry that I've seen? Because some people may tell you, well, I think doctors are the most stressed and they are the ones that get the burnout. Or I've heard some researchers to say that pastors experience most of this burnout and all of that. So talk to us from your own experience, or maybe from any research and all of that you are aware of. Is there, how prevalent is this, and what particular sectors or what kinds of people, or maybe what area in the world is this more prevalent in?
Great questions. I love all of them. So we're going to tackle all of them. So really, burnout it's very prevalent. The World Health Organization years, like almost a couple decades ago, marked stress as one of the greatest epidemics of our lifetime. And the top reason, actually about 90% of the reasons for doctor's visits are stress related. And often that is because burnout is either prevalent and sneaking in, or it's like early warning signs of burnout coming. So Indeed.com, which is a job posting, job board kind of site, they had done a research study before the global pandemic, so back in 2019, and they asked people, how burnt out are you feeling right now? And so the average response was about 9% of people across different industries were experiencing burnout. After the pandemic in 2022, they did that research study again, and it's about 56% of the people have experienced burnout in the last year. And so I feel like, especially with my experience working with individuals, leaders, and organizations, burnout is more prevalent, and it's definitely on the rise now than it was before the pandemic. And I think a lot of us are trying to make up for lost time. So there's more of the drive to produce more, to be more, to be able to make up for that time where the world kind of went quiet for a while, or quieter. And when we look at the different industries for what this actually occurs across, the truth is it's not necessarily isolated to one particular industry or another. The different types of burnout are sometimes higher rates in different industries. So there's actually 4 different types of burnout. There's physical burnout, and this is where our physical energy is drained. And this is typically what we associate burnout with, is when we feel like we need a pep talk to get off the couch to go and get ourselves a drink of water. But then we also can experience emotional burnout. And this is what we often see in caregiving roles. This is also what we can see in leaders that are highly sensitive and lead from a very emotional and vulnerable place. And this is where you feel like all of a sudden your patience is gone. You're more irritable than you normally are. Things come out of your mouth and you're like, "Ooh, I wouldn't normally have said that. Where did that come from?" That's usually some signs that emotional burnout is present. Mental burnout often happens in tech sectors, a lot in the entrepreneurial space. A lot of CEOs also experience mental burnout. Doctors also can experience mental burnout, sometimes a little bit more often than others. And then the final kind of burnout is fulfillment burnout. And so this is where we are doing everything which we think we should be doing. On paper, we're living our best life and everyone's like, "Oh, they've got everything. They must be so happy." But inside it feels like you're dying. Like you just really are not into whatever it is that you're working on. And so those different kinds of burnout are really, it's more the question of what kind of burnout you're experiencing, not are you experiencing burnout at this stage? Because burnout is just sweeping across so many different industries.
Wow, that's some very, very interesting statistics you've talked about there from that of the WHO as well. And thank you for actually clarifying the type of burnout it is that we have. We've got 4 different types of burnout. I think you mentioned them: the physical burnout, the mental, the fulfillment. And I mean, these are very, very important things. And I'm really glad that you're sharing this because, I mean, oftentimes, like I said earlier, we talk about how people accelerate growth in careers, in their businesses. And a lot of times we've seen where people can actually succeed in those areas, but then their personal lives are not as successful. And one of the parts of that is, I mean, their physical health, their emotional health, and all of that. That's very important. So I'm really excited that we are having these conversations today. So you've rightly painted the fact that there is a challenge, and for some people that may not even be aware, they are more at risk of this burnout than they. I mean, some people may have experienced it and didn't know that that was even a burnout. So we've identified that there are challenges with this. Now, what are some of the proactive strategies that individuals or maybe corporate organizations can employ to help to prevent their staff or their team members from experiencing this level of burnout?
So there's 2 ways that people need to address burnout, and often only one way is discussed. So often when we think about burnout and stress management, we think about meditation and mindfulness and journaling and yoga and stretching and taking time to walk in nature and all of these things. But really, those are just symptom management. And so one of my favorite ways to describe this scenario when we're living in this burnout environment is that we are all sitting in a boat and our boat is full of holes. And so stress management strategies like meditation, mindfulness, yoga, those are our bucket. And so it's helping us bail out the boat of the stress continually pouring in, but we're still pouring more and more stress into our lives, even though we've got this bucket that we're bailing ourselves out with. So the more that we practice these stress management strategies, the bigger our bucket gets. So we're more effective at bailing the water out. So we're going to sink slower, but we're still going to sink. So it's a combination of employing some of those stress management strategies, but then also looking at the sources of our stress. Because if we're only addressing the surface level, then we're not actually changing anything about the stressors and the triggers in our life. And so absolutely there are some stressors that we can do something about and we can plug up those holes in our boat. But there are some that we can't. Society, some of our upbringing and the beliefs that we're working with them, those are slow holes in our boat to plug up, or maybe we can't even change them completely. So it's going to be still contributing to our stress overall. But really we have to look at what we can do to really optimize our boat to make sure that we're only bringing in the stressors that we need or can't control, and then we're able to find that balance a little better. Because in this scenario, burnout is your life jacket. So whenever your boat sinks far enough, burnout catches you until your boat can come back out you can start bailing yourself out again. So it's kind of a combo approach that I would recommend. Now, that being said, a lot of the talk around self-care and all of this is you need to do 30 minutes of self-care every day. And I really wish I could meet that person to be like, why? Why did you throw out this number? Because so many people, especially if you're feeling stressed and overwhelmed, trying to find 30 solid minutes in your day, next to impossible. Let's be real, especially at this time of year. Next to impossible. Right? So this is where looking for little pockets of time in your day. So taking 30 seconds before you move into your next meeting just to do some pranayama breath work, slowing down the breathing, deregulating the nervous system. Taking 60 seconds before you walk into a grocery store to just be and just allow your thoughts to kind of let go and settle. We're looking for these little moments in time, not some big block, because those little pockets of time can be incredibly effective.
Well, fantastic. Thank you very much. These are some very, very powerful strategies it is that you've talked about how we can, prevent this level of burnout. Now, I also want us to address particularly the corporate organizations, team leaders, and all of that are on this call right now, or maybe get to see this video afterwards and are thinking about it. What can they do to prevent burnout from their team members? Because the truth is, in as much as everybody wants to drive the team to achieve success, but if the team shuts down, it's counterproductive. So for someone that is thinking, okay, I have a team of people that I'm leading, what can I do? So first of all, how do I ensure that they don't burn out? And just in case they are burnt out already, what can I do? And how do I even identify that this person is at the verge of burnout? Because some people may not even know it. So as a leader, how can you identify that this person is at the verge of burnout, and what can you do to prevent, and if it has happened, to restore such a person?
Great questions. So when we're looking at burnout in teams, we want to look at both the overt and the covert experiences and expressions of burnout. So the more obvious expressions of burnout are people are less likely to engage in meetings. They're maybe not coming to the corporate events that you're organizing, their team building events. People are doing their work, but the sparkle is gone. They're not as engaged in it. The quality is not quite the same. You're also noticing increased absenteeism. You're noticing that people are getting a little bit snippy. And then you can also notice it in the more subtle ways. So the person that used to be the first to arrive and the last to leave are now quietly packing up without giving anybody any notice. People aren't meeting in the group common spaces anymore. Everyone's kind of keeping to themselves. All of these are really subtle signs of burnout as well that really need to be listened to, because it's often the subtle signs that are our early red flags that we can do a little bit more about. Now, as far as what to do about it, if you recognize that your team is burning out, there are two main things that we have to look for first. And again, like we talked about with the boat analogy, we have to look at which sources of stress and pressure are being put on my team that I either A, have control over, or B, don't have control over. And then we want to either create a plan to do something about the ones that we can do something with, or a plan to manage or mitigate the aspects that we don't have control over. Because really, there is a huge staffing shortage, seems across the globe right now. Quiet quitting is definitely a concern that people are experiencing, where it doesn't seem like people are going above and beyond anymore. So looking at all of these things, there aren't necessarily things that you can do about that, because you're already doing your best to recruit. You're already doing your best to get people engaged, but if there's just nothing which you can do about that, then you need to see what other things which you can implement to help manage the concerns that are because of those factors. And so really, for your team, what we need to do first is become clear on those two aspects. What are the stresses and pressures that you can control and the ones that you can't? Creating the plan of either mitigating the things that you can't control, or creating the plan of what you're going to do about the things that you can control. And then also showing up leading with vulnerability, really. Because one of the things that leaders really need to focus on is never letting anybody guess their why. So if you're just putting something out there and you're saying, hey, we're implementing this new strategy because I need this project done on time. And everyone's just like, they just get a bonus if it's done on time. They've now assumed somebody's why. So as the leader, you need to say, hey, we need to get this done on time because it's going to give us more funding for us to hire a new person to make this easier for us in the new year. By sharing those little extra bits and pieces of information, leading with that vulnerability, it really helps the team rally around when things get tough. And that helps people with the fulfillment side of their energy management so that they don't feel the fulfillment burnout drain. So those are some of the main key points that I would recommend for organizations to do.
Wow, that's very, for any team leader or anybody that is watching it, I hope you get some very, very valuable tips on how you can ensure that your team doesn't experience that level of burnout. Now, I'm enjoying this conversation. Now, like I said earlier, in case you have any questions and all of that, I'm trying to check all the platforms that we're streaming on to be sure there are no questions. But just in case you have any questions for Avery, please drop those questions there, and I will try as much as possible to take the questions in the course of this conversation. Now, well, let's talk a bit about personal productivity and growth, right? Because the title of our webinar is how to stop the burnout and unlock your productivity potential. Now, so how does prioritizing well-being contribute to personal growth, and how can that enhance productivity? What is the connection? What is the relationship between all of those? Please talk to us about those.
Yes. So I think all of us know that, if you eat better and you exercise more, you feel better. So then you're able to do more and you're able to be more productive. But here's some of the science behind it. So with something as simple as water, when you increase your hydration, you're increasing the amount of water that's in your brain, which then lowers your stress response because your brain doesn't feel extra pressure as it's kind of settling into the bottom of your skull. Plus, it also improves the real flow that allows you to access your prefrontal cortex, which is your higher level thinking, problem solving brain. So when we also eat foods that are highly processed, that increases stress, and it also increases the nutrient focus to areas like your liver and your digestion to be able to process some of those foods. And that then lowers our access to that higher level thinking prefrontal cortex. So when we're looking at reasons why we should be more mindful of what we consume, there are some of the reasons why. Now, when we want to really look at how to optimize our productivity without burning out, a lot of people ask, how do I do more, but more efficiently so I can get more done in less time? But the truth is that's the wrong question. Because what we actually want to ask is, how do I get the right things done in the right time? So a lot of what our burnout prevention strategy needs to look at is not necessarily just at how to optimize our performance as a human, but how to make sure that we're aligned with what we actually want to work towards. And so taking time to really get clear on that is incredibly, incredibly helpful. And then another aspect is, like we've been kind of hinting at earlier, is the energy management piece. Because just like there's 4 different kinds of burnout, there's 4 different kinds of energy. So if you're really low on mental energy, before you try and blast through this really difficult problem that you need to solve for your organization, maybe do something that recharges a bit of mental energy first to really prepare yourself and set yourself up for success. So you're not then running on adrenaline, the stress hormones, to try and get you through.
Wow, thank you very, very much. That's very fantastic. Now, we know that, in the course of your work and all of that, you would have worked with several individuals. We're just interested. Can you share any success stories of individuals who have been transformed as a result of some of the strategies it is that you have advised that they have implemented? Is there anybody, without mentioning names in particular, definitely? It's just, we're just interested.
Yes, absolutely. So one of the stories I think that will resonate most with what we're talking about is one of my former clients. He chose the name Hugh for us to use for his testimonial stories. So Hugh was this person that I met, and he was working as an occupational therapist in a return to work program for people that had injured themselves at work. And so his job was to create the recovery plan, to negotiate and really liaise with the doctors, with the insurance companies, with the employers, with the government. He had so much work to do, and he was really feeling super burnt out. He was hating his job, and he was looking for other options when he reached out to me. And I was chatting with him, and he said that he went to his boss and he said, I just can't get it all done. There's just not enough time in the day. I'm staying late to try and get all this paperwork done, and I miss actually talking to people. I am here as a people person to do this job and to interact with people and help them get better, but I'm too busy filing paper in the back room. And so her response was, okay, I'm just going to increase your hours. You're going to get 5 extra hours a week to do the work. best of luck. And he was just like, not what I wanted at all. So when we were chatting about that, we dug into the clarity piece. What do you really want? What fulfills you? And so when we chatted about that, he realized that what fulfilled him really was that one-to-one client interaction. But we had to get rid of some of his belief systems. We had to kind of reboot his mindset a little bit, so that way he could get out of the all or nothing thinking, which is one of the ways that we sabotage ourselves, and start to look at it in a more creative way. So just like I talked about earlier, when we're looking at self-care, instead of having it be this perfect 30-minute block, let's again look at it in little pockets of time. So instead of having a full half-hour assessment with each of his clients every week, we said, well, how about if you have a 5-minute check-in with everybody? And so we had a list, and he would go through all of his clients, have a quick 5-minute check-in, talk with the team, get out on the floor, and just that little shift in his workflow made him more productive. He was able to leave work on time. He was able to feel connected to his job again. And so instead of reaching and looking for another opportunity, he stayed with that organization for another 3 years before being promoted to a management role within that organization. So really, that clarity piece, I cannot emphasize enough how important that is.
Well, that's a really amazing success story, and I'm sure, he's out there and he's enjoying every bit of what it is, the transformation it is that he has experienced. Now, so let's talk about, now there are certain individuals right now, because of their schedule, right, they have highly demanding schedules right now. How can they get to balance the commitments? They have a lot of commitments, they have expectations, they have a lot of people that are looking up to them to deliver on certain things, but then they also need to prioritize the self-care. What strategies, or how would you recommend that they can marry these two together, still constantly continue to deliver at high level productivity, but yet have constant self-care? What would you recommend in such a case?
So the answer which I'm going to share is something which these people aren't going to like to hear, is you're going to have to get used to disappointing people. And so when I say that, I mean, you're not going to just all of a sudden dump all of your commitments and just be like, best of luck, everybody. You're going to, again, become clear on what actually matters to you. Not what you've been told should matter to you, but what actually matters to you. And then working to either delegate, train somebody else, ask for help, maybe just set a boundary and say no. Or again, it's not all or nothing. So we don't have to say, I'm either going to do this or I'm not going to do this responsibility. Maybe it's more of, I can now dedicate this much time to this responsibility or this organization. And so that means that, hey, I want to sit down with you because I only have this much time to dedicate. Let's talk about what we should do to prioritize the skills that I have to make sure that I'm making the most out of that time for you. So it really just comes down to some of those assertive conversations. And again, comes back to clarity. Now, when it looks at self-care, if your self-care is the first thing to go when you get super busy, or if I were to ask you, like, what would you do with an extra hour in the day? And the answer is not rest or sleep, then it's clearly a sign that you're on your way to burnout. So when you think about what you would fill that extra time with, if you were to go on vacation for 2 weeks and nobody needed anything from you and you could do whatever it is that you wanted, what are those things? And then look for ways to bring in those kinds of exercises and calm activities and things that really help you restore your energies, and look for ways to bring those in gentle ways. Oh, my dog's getting up to stretch. There he goes. We're alive, friends.
Yeah. I mean, that's really, really amazing. That's fantastic. Now, I know we're enjoying this conversation. We're going to be, gradually start winding down this very soon, because we know we can't keep Avery forever. Now, for anybody that has any questions, please send the questions in. But, what we know, you run many programs, and one of the programs you run is what it's called a Mindset Reboot program. So talk to us a bit about this program and how can it help individuals overcome setbacks and regain a sense of purpose in their lives.
So the Mindset Reboot program is really for people that are feeling like they're living somebody else's life. Like they're living up to somebody else's expectations. They're constantly burning out. They just feel like they can't get ahead. Something's holding them back. And so what we're trying to do in this program is help you examine your current belief system that's actually perpetuating burnout, if we're looking at it, we can only see it as like really just perpetuating that experience. And so then we're looking at those different belief systems on a scale of serving versus sabotaging, because nothing is inherently positive or negative, good or bad. Being a high achiever can absolutely serve me, and it can totally sabotage me sometimes. So I have to be able to know what that looks like on each end of the spectrum, so that way I can balance it, especially when I recognize some of the red flags that are bringing me into the sabotaging side. So when we look at high achievers and people that often end up in leadership roles, they often grew up with really high parental expectations, where you'd come home with an exam and the mark would be 96% and your parents would say, great, where's the other 4%? Let's figure out what you did wrong and how we can learn from it. So again, serving, because it's taught you to be this curious person that's always striving to learn more and be better and challenge yourself. But sabotaging when it starts to go into perfectionism and then nothing's ever good enough. People that often experience early academic success, or growing up in a family where other members of the family experienced a lot of academic success, and there was the sort of comparison between different siblings, those things can also lead to belief systems that we need to really evaluate. If you grew up in a reward-based family where it was really your achievements were what was recognized and what was really given that love, that's where we really need to look at those belief systems on those scales. And so one of my clients that went through it, she said that she didn't even realize all of the subtle ways that she was sabotaging herself based on beliefs and habits that were taught to her by her parents, by the important and influential adults growing up, by capitalism, by the world that we live in, by the books that she read. And so really just learning how to release yourself from all of those so that you can reboot and really choose the patterns that you want to live in moving forward. That's what that program is all about. And I know that a lot of us have been living in these current belief systems for decades. It's been almost 4 decades for me, but it only takes a couple weeks to start to reprogram these and to really notice the difference. Usually it's about the 8 or 9 week mark that people start to feel that huge shift. And that's where the momentum really comes from.
That's really amazing. That's really amazing. Now we're nearing the end of 2023, right? And a lot of people are, some people have kind of given up on their whatever New Year's resolutions long ago and all of that. And in the next couple of weeks, we're going to be, setting a new set of resolutions and all of that. And for many people, top on those lists will be, self-care and all of that. Okay, so what are those things that you would recommend should go on whatever, if it's a New Year's resolutions list or whatever it is, what are those things that you would describe as priorities for every individual to have on their list going into the new year?
That's a great question, Shay. And my answer is it depends. Because there are so many books out there that tell you what your miracle morning routine should be, or what your bedtime routine should be, or the things that you should include in every day. But when you think about these kinds of things, they work for that individual. Other people force it to work for them. But when you start to think about the activities and new habits that you want to implement, I want you to just take a step back and just ask yourself, how do I want to feel in 2024? How do I want to feel after my morning routine? How do I want to feel? Because when we dig into that helps you really navigate what you actually need to do. Because we really run into trouble when we set up rigid routines, when we need to exercise a certain number of times per week, or when we need to do these certain checklist items every morning. Then it starts to activate our nervous system, because now we're looking at okay, I need to be able to get up enough time to be able to do all of these things, so that way I'm the best that I can be, so I can show up for all these people. It already just makes me sound stressed out, just already thinking about that. So really, when we look at how you want to feel, then that starts to give you really good insight into the kinds of habits that you should be adding. My next suggestion is to look for one habit in each of those different energy fields that we've talked about. So what charges your physical energy and makes you feel like your physical energy is improving? Pick something in that category and start small. Same with your emotional, your mental, and your fulfillment energy. Think of one little thing that you can do that's going to help generate some of that energy for you on the regular. The most important piece of all of this is to start smaller than you think. because like with so many New Year's resolutions, I think the research shows that most of them are dead and gone by like January 8th, right? Like people last a solid week and then it's like, this is too much. So what I always suggest to high achievers especially is to go for your smallest possible first step and make that into a habit until that feels easy and natural, and then expand. And I know that as a high achiever, you just want to jump off the deep end and start it all right away and just like magic wand, fix your life, everything's going to be great. But how's that working for you? So try smaller shifts first. If you want to run a marathon, start off by taking regular walks every day for a set amount of time. When that feels normal and natural and you kind of got that built into your nervous system and your habits, then start to extend that, start to build up slowly, because it's when we go from couch to marathon that we start to run into some problems.
Oh, wow. That's amazing. I mean, you're giving some really, really valuable tips there. And summary of what it is we've talked about in that is, don't try to do everything all together at once. Start small. The key is consistency. It's not about how far you do it at once. The consistency. Take little steps. And you've talked about identifying the little things you can do in each of those areas we talked about. So in your physical health, your emotional health, your mental, and then your fulfillment aspect. Look for little things you can do, but the key is to stay consistent on all of those. Now, in case you haven't written out your New Year's resolutions, that's something for you to consider. And if you've done it and you need to scrap it all around and do it all over again, please go ahead. The key is to do something that you know you can get committed to. Don't start off and then, like we said, research has shown by the 8th. I was reading a research some time back where even the gyms and all of that, they experienced their highest number of influx at the beginning of the year. And there was a particular gym center in the UK, right? They at that time, so they had to go rent extra equipment at that time. And someone was saying to them, why are you going to rent? Why not go ahead to buy? And he says, you know what, I've been in this game long enough. All those people that you see right here in the next week, they won't be out of here. So it doesn't make economic sense for me to go buy equipment. I can easily just rent to keep them active for the 1 week or so that they're going to be here. So don't be like one of those people. Just be consistent with what it is that you can do. Now we're enjoying this conversation, everybody. We know we need to let you go very soon. So talking about winding this down, right? What are those key things or key pieces of advice that you would give someone that is watching right now, someone that is thinking right now, looking to stop burnout and unlock their productivity? How would you sum up and summarize everything it is that you've talked about in just a few words for this person?
So I would remind everybody that's watching right now that consistency doesn't mean frequency. So you don't have to be consistent every day in order to be consistent with something. And then also that always do your best doesn't mean always be perfect. So when we're looking at the different strategies that we've talked about and the things that maybe jumped out at you that maybe want to implement, if you want to really start to create some shifts, always do your best doesn't mean always be perfect. Your best is going to change day to day, moment to moment. So just give yourself a little grace to move with that.
Wow, those are some very valuable quotes in it that you get. Consistency doesn't mean frequency, and always do your best doesn't mean you have to do the best. You have to. So that's really, really amazing. Thank you very, very much. Now, I have a question for you. Now, imagine you woke up one morning, right, and just about everything we knew about Avery Tacher had disappeared. No one knew you, no one had ever heard about you before. All the connections, all the work it is that you've done in the past, everything gone down the drain, and then you had to start your career and your life all over again. Where would you start from, and what are you going to do differently this time?
That is such a beautiful question. So I would start from the space of connecting with people. I wouldn't worry about social media. I wouldn't worry about the other marketing strategies. I would start off by just connecting with people, because I feel like, especially in our digital age, there's so much screen disconnection. So I know that people, especially when they're burnt out, really miss that one-on-one human connection. And so then what I would want people to know is that their experience, which they feel like they are the only one and have no idea who to turn to, they need to start sharing that. Because when we share our stories, that we become the most powerful. So when I'm meeting all these new people, I would definitely start by sharing my story.
Fantastic. Share your story. That goes to someone out there. Share your story. Fantastic. Now, if people wanted to, connect with you, find out more about what you do, or maybe even secure your services in one way or the other, what's the best place for them to go out to reach you?
Absolutely. Thanks for asking. So you can find my website, thetruthaboutburnout.com. You can also find me at becomingavery.com. So I'd recommend checking me out there or finding me on LinkedIn. I'm very active on that platform as well.
I can really attest to that. You're very active on that platform as well. So just before we let you go, any final thoughts, comments for those that are on this call right now?
If you think that you are experiencing burnout, you're probably right. So if you've got this little inkling that there might be a bit of burnout in your life, it's time to do something about it, because you deserve to feel better than you do right now.
Fantastic words from Avery Tacher. Ladies and gentlemen, it's been awesome having Avery on the conversation with us. We've learned so much. Even I have learned so much. I'm going to be striking some things out of my New Year's resolution and adding some things to that already. Even I have learned so much from that. Thank you so very, very much. From everybody on this call and myself, we would like to appreciate you for taking our time out of your very, very busy and tight schedule to share from your wealth of experience with us on this webinar today.
Well, thank you so much for having me again. I really appreciate that you hold space for these kinds of conversations.
Thank you very much. Now, for everybody out there, thank you for joining us on this webinar. Now, as you know, we usually have these conversations like this, and let me say to you, next week Thursday, as a matter of fact, on the 28th, we're going to be having another webinar like this. We're going to be hosting another wonderful guest. You don't want to miss that as well. And also, if you haven't heard of it, in case you're somewhere on this planet and you've not heard, the Impact Leadership Conference. Now, yes, that same conference has been touching lives all over the world. The next stop is in Manchester. So Impact Leadership Conference is coming to Manchester on the 17th of February. So if you're watching right now, let me show you. Okay, yeah. So that's the flyer right now. Whatever platform it is you are, someone should have dropped the link in the comment box for you if you would like to register for that. Now, you can see we have amazing personalities that will be there. We're having Mr. Hoshan, we're having Saroj, we're having Uche, we're having Vincent. Vincent is coming in from Scotland to be a part of that conference there. We're having a number of people. Yesterday, I was speaking with a lady that is coming for the conference all the way from Bangladesh. She's traveling into the UK for the Impact Leadership Conference. You don't want to miss that conference. So everybody go register for that. Now, the interesting thing is this. It is absolutely free. Now, it is not cheap, but it is free. It has been made free for you because we want to help you as much as possible. So all that is required of you is to get registered. It is free, but registration is compulsory. Now we have both options. You can either join us in person in Manchester, or if you're not in and around Manchester, or you can't make it down to the venue on that day, you can also join us virtually. You're going to have an amazing experience as well. So ladies and gentlemen, that's been our webinar for today. And I would always say to you, remember, there is greatness on your inside and the world is waiting for you to birth and manifest your greatness. Go out there and be profitable, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye for now.